To this, the West continued funding certain non-governmental organizations.
It's very funny because a lot of these non-governmental organizations are governmental. They're financed by the United States government.
The NGOs that had the most political and media influence in Serbia were the Humanitarian Law Center, officially led by Sandra Orlović, who succeeded Nataša Kandić, the Center for Cultural Decontamination, led by Borka Pavićević, the Helsinki Board for Human Rights, led by Sonja Biserko, the Youth Initiative for Human Rights, led by Maja Mičić, and the Center for Euro-Atlantic Studies, led by Jelena Milić. Most of these NGOs operated in other republics of the former Yugoslavia as well, but the Serbian representatives were the most interesting.
Serbian public, they immediately discard us and discharge us as paid by NATO.
But where does the center receive its funding?
From Open Society Fund in Belgrade, from National Endowment for Democracy, from Rockefeller Brothers Foundation.
National Endowment for Democracy, Rockefeller Brothers.
For two events from NATO Public Diplomacy, but it was not enough.
So you are paid by NATO in a way?
For two events.
From the beginning when we were formed, it was support from Swedish Helsinki Committee, and it's called, now it's Fund for Open Society, and it is a Soros Foundation.
And some governments like Norway, which is very present in the region, not only helping NGOs but also state.
The Norwegian People Aid built us a roof because it was ruined here where we are. Look at this, it looks like that.
And then through different humanitarian programs and so on.
Who financira centar? What Ms. Kandić didn't want to say is that her Humanitarian Law Center was directly funded by the National Endowment for Democracy, the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, the Open Society Foundation, USAID, the United States Institute of Peace, the Balkan Trust for Democracy, Civil Rights Defenders, the King Baldwin Foundation, and then there's also the European Commission, the OSCE Mission to Serbia, the British Embassy in Belgrade, the Austrian Development Cooperation, the Canadian Embassy in Belgrade, the German Embassy in Belgrade, the Royal Netherlands Embassy in Belgrade, the Swiss Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and 10 other foreign organizations. At the end of the day, whose interests is Ms. Kandić looking after? The citizens of Serbia, who largely dislike her work, or all these foreign governments and organizations which give her money? But the foreign financiers don't stop with the NGOs that I mentioned. Some also fund UCOM Lawyers Committee for Human Rights, Women in Black, Peščanik or Hourglass, Sanja Committee for the Protection of Human Rights and Freedoms, Civic Initiatives, and many others. Don't let the whole human rights mantra fool you.
Ima li svako pravo na različito mišljenje?
Nema. Pre svega, svako ko šta govori i radi nije nužno mišljenje.
Kako je moguće u demokratiji da nema prava na različito mišljenje?
U tome i jeste problem.
This is especially interesting considering that Borka Pavićević's Center for Cultural Decontamination received $38,000 in 2013 from the National Endowment for Democracy to promote public debate on various issues.
Does everybody have the right to a different opinion?
Some NGO members were also members of political parties at the same time, like Dušan Gamser, who was an economic advisor at the Center for Euro-Atlantic Studies, as well as the international secretary of the Liberal Democratic Party.
So you're a member of a political party and you work at an NGO?
Yes, why not?
You don't think there's a conflict of interest?
No, I don't.
Why not?
Yeah, these are different things. In political party, you are helping your party colleagues to get to power. You are advising them. You do things, various things in the party. And when you are in the NGO, you do things, maybe same things, by other methods.
So where is the line between these NGOs and political parties? Aren't NGOs supposed to be the corrective factor of all levels of government, instead of betting on who'll get into the government? The goal of these NGOs, however, was something else.
We all gathered ourselves pretty much on the same values and same goals that we thought would be good for Serbia for more than 10 years in different settings of us knowing each other more or less. And whenever we recruit new interims or whoever, we always refer them to our website, to our manifesto, and openly say that we are in favor of Serbian NATO membership.
But it doesn't stop there. These NGOs don't wait for citizens to become legal adults in order for those NGOs to start recruiting them or shaping their opinions on various political or social issues.
We have, for example, many educational programs, now 10 years, mostly secondary school children and students. So we have human rights schools which last 10 days. We gather children from all over Serbia, from different backgrounds. We select usually 30 children. In 10 days, and it's a very intensive program, they really change. In what way? They're offered a framework, a referential framework to think. You just have to guide them, to tell them what is wrong and what is good, what is evil, So these elementary things, just to show them direction, they easily accept it.
Yes, children do tend to get brainwashed more easily.
I zato treba bogato, iskustvo pedagoga. Da, Boga.
U zemlji kao što je Srbija, gde je dostignut visok nivo psihosocijalne dezintegracije društva, lako je manipulisati čitavim društvom, pa i delovima društva, bilo kojim grupama, a pogotovo onim najosjetljivijim. To su u svakom slučaju mladi, koji su tek u procesu formiranja nekih svojih vrednostnih i životnih stavova, pa je ono što naš narod naziva ispiranje mozga, a to je u stvari intelektualni inženjering, pre svega vrednostnih, znači političkih stavova, koji su najvažniji, najinteresantnije onima koji to koriste, jer mladi tek formiraju svoje stavove i lako mogu i da ih menjaju. Zato oni jesu ciljna grupa za one koji hoće da manipulišu njim.
That's why NGOs don't waste time in making it clear who are the world's good guys.
The West is almost a synonym for democracy, for the respect of human rights and rule of law, for individual liberties.
But hey, I'm sure these NGOs can be critical towards the West as well, despite receiving money from them.
Do I think that United States might be unfair sometimes towards somebody? Yes, of course. No one is perfect.
Do you have any examples of that?
Sure. I don't know. Now I have hard times imagining the example, but maybe...
That's okay. It's not like the United States or the CIA ever admit to making mistakes either.
The United States and the CIA as one of its implements made mistakes and makes mistakes all the time.
Oh, so the former CIA director does admit that. But Dusan Gamser can't think of any mistakes.
I don't know.
Talk about being more Catholic than the Pope.
Because they are technically non-governmental, whatever they do, the country that they're acting in, you can't accuse the United States of doing it because it's a non-governmental organization that is doing this subversion.
Some other countries knew how to deal with this. In 2012, Russian President Vladimir Putin approved a law which was previously cleared with overwhelming support by parliament, obliging NGOs that receive funding from abroad to register as foreign agents. The US State Department quickly condemned the law, which was really odd considering that the US passed a very similar law, the Foreign Agents Registration Act, back in 1938.
Today's threat to our national security is not a matter of military weapons alone. We know of new methods of attack. The Trojan horse, the fifth column, spies, saboteurs, and traitors. Our moral and our mental defenses must be raised up as never before against those who would cast a smokescreen across our vision.
The US law requires groups representing the interests of foreign powers in a political or quasi-political capacity to disclose their relationship with the foreign government and information about related activities and finances. This law is still in effect in the US.
If America really is about freedom, democracy and the rule of law, then it should be doing the same sort of thing in Saudi Arabia, but they don't. Let's have a look at the situation for women. They barely have any rights. Their rights in education is restricted. They're restricted when it comes to elections. So that just shows what Saudi Arabia is like domestically. But you could argue there's even a more sinister aspect to Saudi Arabia. It was Saudi Arabia that gave birth to Al-Qaeda, from 9/11 to Bali to Madrid to London, to Damascus. The routes go all the way back to Saudi Arabia.
Wow, from what this guy's saying, Saudi Arabia sounds like a horrible place. It must be on top of America's terrorist list.
Well, they're not at all on top of America's terrorist list. Saudi Arabia is one of America's closest allies in the world because of the business links there. If the Americans were so sincere about protecting and encouraging human rights in the world and democracy, there'd be an American naval flotilla off the coast of Saudi Arabia. It's one of the most wicked regimes in the world.
The foreign-funded civil society issue had little to do with human rights, and even less with democracy. In Introducing Democracy, a book written by David Beetham and Kevin Boyle, and published by UNESCO for the education of people in newly established democracies on human rights and political freedoms, it said that an influence of an NGO on a government can be democratic only if it stems from mass membership, and not that which stems from the accumulation of wealth or power in the hands of a few. In Serbia, according to their websites or statutes, the Center for Cultural Decontamination had 14 members, the Helsinki Board for Human Rights had 9 members, the Humanitarian Law Center had 8 members, and the Center for Euro-Atlantic Studies had 4 members. As for the funding, despite these organizations practically framing the word transparency on their walls, they never were very transparent regarding how much money they received. So I did a little investigative work and sent out questionnaires to all of the sponsors of the organizations that I mentioned, asking how much money they gave to the NGOs. A few actually replied. And this was just the tip of the iceberg. So much for mass membership with no accumulation of wealth. For a group of organizations supportedly promoting democracy at every corner, they weren't very democratic at all. At least by UNESCO standards. Some of the individuals working in these NGOs advocated full acceptance of everything the International Monetary Fund demands, despite the lessons from Greece, Ecuador, and many other countries.
I don't think West is enslaving us, I think West is liberating us. International Monetary Fund is liberating us. Accepting the terms of the International Monetary Fund are a step forward for Serbia.
The IMF serves the IMF, it doesn't serve any country. The IMF comes in like a vulture. It puts Serbia deeper into debt, that's what it'll do. So the people will be working for the international financial bankers.